Hi everyone, my name is Amanda Johnson, and this is my presentation over our literature review assignment from this semester. My topic was employee retention among higher education staff. So just to jump into things, higher education staff members are essential to institutional success and just operations and things like that. Staff members support key functions like recruitment efforts, financial aid, housing, student services, including enrollment, and then also retention efforts, any sort of campus life initiatives, campus involvement. So having strong staffing is critical for effective operations and critical for student success. So a problem is that retention among staff members is become a growing concern. So the Coupa HR report from 2023 and 2025 showed that over 50% of staff reported being somewhat likely to leave their roles. So with keeping this in mind, we are looking just to seek the factors that are influencing staff retention in higher education. Among these factors and things that have come up from the articles that I've studied are things like organizational culture, onboarding experiences, job satisfaction, and workforce trends. So just to look at who exactly is affected, well, obviously college students are because without having adequate and exemplary staff members working for colleges and universities, that support is not there for those college students, and things can kind of slip through the cracks for them. There's also an effect on the other staff members, the ones who remain whenever their colleagues or supervisors make the decision to leave their jobs and leave the university for whatever reason. There's that effect of staff members that are left behind having to kind of pick up the slack and kind of do things that maybe are outside of their normal job responsibilities, which also just creates, just more frustration and just lack of efficiency there as well. Supervisors and those in leadership roles are also affected by this because, they're the ones having to recruit somebody new to replace someone, trainings and all that sort of things. And also the HR departments are affected as well. So just looking into this kind of theme of organizational culture and the work environment, so findings showed that there's a strong link between organizational culture and retention. Researchers Alderson and Rahman in their 2023 study found that the negative leadership styles or this idea of having a power culture reduces retention. So employees do tend to value recognition. They are looking for opportunities for career development and just want to be treated fairly. And then Naidu and other colleagues of his in 2019 did a study that examined psychological contracts, and he found that even with high job satisfaction, there was a hidden frustration and disengagement that existed. So, kind of a takeaway here is that culture and leadership directly shape whether employees are going to stay or leave their jobs. The onboarding and support theme, so findings from those studies showed that a lack of structured onboarding is going to lead to confusion, weaker adjustment to the job. This is from a study by Hussein and colleagues of his. He did a mixed method study in Malaysia. Having those clear expectations and strong support system is going to be what leads to smoother transitions. And then also finding that poor onboarding is linked to early turnover within the first 3 years. This was from a study by King, Road, and Wilson in 2018, a study that was done in the United Kingdom using qualitative interviews. So this study showed that insufficient orientation or unclear expectations made it difficult for those new employees to be able to transition into their roles and fully understand like the scope of what their role and responsibilities were. So notably, 5 out of those 30 participants ended up leaving their institutions within 3 years. So, kind of a takeaway here is that first impressions do matter. So, having that early support through orientation and onboarding processes is going to be what drives long-term retention. Looking at job satisfaction and work conditions, studies showed that key drivers of retention were compensation. That was the strongest factor in a few of the studies, but also being able to have a work-life balance, having positive relationships with colleagues and supervisors, and then opportunities for growth were also those drivers for retaining staff. There was a contrast showing that, a high passion for work does not necessarily mean that staff are immune to burnout or dissatisfaction. In a study by Welch and Brantmeyer, they identified that supportive management, work-life balance, and fair compensation were those motivators to stay. They did notice that the absence of those factors could push employees to leave their jobs. And then in a study by Zromek and Wolniak, they found that while academic researchers reported high job satisfaction and passion, dissatisfaction was there and it was linked to heavy administrative workloads and just poor working conditions. A takeaway here is that measuring satisfaction can be complex because multiple factors influence satisfaction. But when key needs aren't met, that's when employees tend to leave. Looking at turnover trends and just patterns within the workforce. So findings here showed that there was a higher turnover with younger employees in the 20 to 35 age bracket, and also a higher turnover with fixed term or research-based roles. Some of the studies showed that traditional factors, things like adequate pay, and then job satisfaction, don't fully explain the issue of turnover. So there's the suggestion that there's an influence of leadership, culture, and then also the external job market as well. So Kaninga and Dorasamy in their study, they are the ones that found those variables like job satisfaction and pay are not the strongest predictors, suggesting that there are issues like leadership or external job opportunities that might play a role. And then Gandy and his colleagues in 2018, they analyzed institutional data from over 2,500 employees, and they found that those turnover rates were higher among those younger employees and also among those fixed term or research-based roles. The idea here is that turnover is a complex thing. Data is going to show the patterns, but it doesn't always show the clear causes. So just connecting this back to higher education leadership and administration. So being a good leader, having good leadership, effective leadership does shape retention. So as the studies are showing, organizational culture begins with leadership decisions. Supportive supervisors can positively influence employee commitment and engagement. Staff retention is also what helps support institutional effectiveness. So having high turnover is going to disrupt student services. It may affect enrollment. It may affect advising offices and then just daily operations like that. It could also affect retaining experienced staff, which strengthens institutional stability. But if you don't have the staff, then you don't have that. Policy and administrative implications. So uh, leaders in higher ed need to invest in structured onboarding, having professional development and career advancement opportunities, and just creating workplace cultures that are built on recognition and communication is going to just kind of help make staff members more committed and more engaged with their work and less likely to leave their jobs. A leadership takeaway here is that retention should be viewed as a strategic leadership responsibility, not just an issue that an HR office has to deal with. And just a personal reflection here. So some things that I learned is that staff retention is influenced by multiple complex factors. There's not just one reason why people leave their job. Organizational culture often matters as much as compensation. And the professional connection to it. So my work focuses on student success through supporting professional staff. So having those strong employee retention creates better outcomes for students. Leadership goals would be to foster a supportive workplace culture, prioritize onboarding practices, mentoring, and employee development to be able to keep and retain staff that have been hired. Future considerations would be to continue looking at how leadership practices influence long-term staff retention. And just a conclusion here and just an overall takeaway. So essentially, the studies have shown that staff turnover is influenced by three areas. So organizational factors such as culture and leadership. There are interpersonal factors such as having support and also positive relationships with coworkers. And then individual factors like your own job satisfaction or your own career goals. And consistent across those studies is that supportive environments is going to increase retention. Poor onboarding weakens the long-term commitment, and compensation, workload, and growth opportunities are critical. Staff retention does remain a significant challenge in higher ed. And it's, I think could possibly continue to grow. So there's no single factor that's going to explain turnover. As we've seen here, there are multiple elements or reasons or factors at play. But it's up to our institutions and our leaders to be able to prioritize those strong onboarding practices, having supportive leaders and good organizational culture, and just being competitive with compensation and also allowing opportunities for growth. Those are all things that make an employee want to continue to stay in their role. So a takeaway here is just improving staff experiences will result in stronger institutions overall. And then here are my references. Thank you.